The fluorescent lights of Metro General's emergency room cast their familiar harsh glow as Sarah Chen adjusted her scrubs for the 12th hour of her night shift. At 32, she had spent nearly a decade in these halls, yet each night brought its own unique symphony of beeping monitors, rushing footsteps, and urgent voices. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and despite the exhaustion that tugged at her shoulders, her eyes remained alert and focused. "Sarah, your coffee's getting cold," called Lisa, her favorite charge nurse, sliding a paper cup across the nurse's station. "Thanks, but I haven't had time to even think about coffee," Sarah replied, quickly scanning through patient charts on her tablet. It had been one of those nights: 3 trauma cases, a heart attack, and countless minor emergencies that kept her moving from room to room like a well-choreographed dance. The relative quiet of the early morning was shattered by the sudden burst of the emergency doors. Multiple trauma coming in. Car versus guardrail on the expressway. The paramedic's voice cut through the air like a knife. Sarah's body moved before her mind could catch up, muscle memory from countless similar situations taking over. As she rushed toward the incoming gurney, time seemed to slow down. The patient was male, early 40s, his once pristine suit now torn and bloodied. His face was barely visible through the blood and the oxygen mask, but Sarah caught a glimpse of strong features now twisted in pain. Marcus Reynolds, 41, single vehicle accident. Possible internal bleeding, multiple lacerations, suspected traumatic pneumothorax. BP dropping, currently 90/60, and falling. The paramedic's report was crisp and professional, but the urgency in his voice was unmistakable. "Trauma Bay 1," Sarah called out, already assessing the patient's condition with practiced efficiency. As they transferred him to the hospital bed, Marcus's eyes flew open, deep brown and filled with terror. His hand shot out, grabbing Sarah's wrist with surprising strength. "Please," he managed to gasp through the oxygen mask, "please don't let me die." Something in those eyes, in that desperate plea, struck Sarah differently than the thousands of other patients she'd treated. "Look at me, Marcus," she said firmly, holding his gaze. "I'm Sarah, and I'm going to be right here with you. We're going to get through this together." The next hours were a blur of controlled chaos. When the trauma surgeon was delayed by another emergency, Sarah noticed Marcus's deteriorating condition before anyone else. "His chest cavity is filling with blood," she announced, her voice cutting through the noise. "We need to perform an emergency thoracostomy now." "The surgeon's still 10 minutes out," someone called. Sarah made a split-second decision. "I've assisted on dozens of these. I know the procedure." She looked at Dr. Richards, the attending physician, who gave her a quick nod. With steady hands and unwavering focus, she inserted the chest tube, providing crucial relief to Marcus's failing respiratory system. Throughout the night, Sarah stayed by Marcus's side, monitoring every change, anticipating every need. When his blood pressure crashed at 4 a.m., she was already preparing the necessary medications. When he showed signs of post-traumatic stress during a moment of consciousness, she was there with a calm voice and reassuring touch. As dawn began to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, Sarah finally allowed herself to sink into a chair beside Marcus's now stabilized form. The monitors beeped steadily, each sound a reminder that they had won this battle against death. "You're quite something, aren't you?" Dr. Richards said, entering the room to check on the patient. "Quick thinking with that chest tube. Saved his life, no doubt about it." Sarah shrugged, but couldn't hide a small smile of satisfaction. "Just doing my job." "No," the doctor shook his head, "you did more than your job. You showed exceptional judgment and skill tonight. Mr. Reynolds here is a lucky man." As if on cue, Marcus stirred slightly, his eyes fluttering open. This time they were clearer, more focused. They found Sarah immediately, and she saw something in them that made her breath catch: recognition, gratitude, and something else she couldn't quite name. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice hoarse but steady, "you stayed." "I told you we'd get through this together," she replied softly, checking his vitals one more time. As she recorded his improved numbers in the chart, Sarah felt the weight of his gaze following her movements. Neither of them could have known in that moment how this night would change both their lives forever, how this connection forged in crisis would lead to choices that would test their principles, their hearts, and their very understanding of what it means to save a life. The morning shift began filtering in, bringing with them the usual bustle of shift change, but in room 204, time seemed to move differently. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, between one breath and another, something profound had shifted. Sarah Chen, the dedicated ear nurse who had saved countless lives, had no way of knowing that in saving Marcus Reynolds, she had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything she believed in. Over the next few weeks, room 204 became more than just another recovery room at Metro General. Each morning, when Sarah arrived for her shift, she found herself gravitating there first, even before checking the daily roster. Marcus Reynolds was proving to be an unusually engaging patient, despite the pain and discomfort of his recovery. "I've been thinking," Marcus said one morning, as Sarah checked his chest tube. "About the moment I woke up in the ER, his voice had regained its strength, revealing a rich baritone that carried the confidence of someone used to commanding attention. Everything was chaos and pain, but then I saw your eyes. They were so certain." Sarah felt a slight flush rise to her cheeks but kept her movements professional. That certainty comes from years of training and experience. "Though I have to admit, you gave us quite a challenge that night." "So I've heard." Marcus shifted carefully in his bed, wincing slightly. "The doctors tell me you made a crucial call that saved my life. I haven't properly thanked you for that." "It's my job," Sarah replied automatically, but Marcus shook his head. "No, from what I understand, it was well beyond your job description. You took a risk for me." He reached for his phone on the bedside table, and Sarah noticed dozens of unread emails and messages flooding the screen. "Would you believe I used to think running a tech company was stressful?" Sarah's curiosity got the better of her. "What kind of tech company?" Marcus's eyes lit up, and for a moment she saw past the patient to the dynamic entrepreneur beneath. "Reynolds Innovation Labs. We're working on artificial intelligence applications in various sectors. Currently, we're focusing on." He paused, seeming to catch himself. "Sorry, I tend to get carried away when talking about work." "No, please continue," Sarah encouraged, finding herself genuinely interested. She pulled up a chair, her rounds momentarily forgotten. "It's good to see you animated about something other than your pain levels." Over the next hour, Marcus shared stories about his journey from a coding prodigy to CEO of his own company. Sarah found herself drawn into his world of innovation and possibility, while he, in turn, asked thoughtful questions about her experiences in healthcare. Their conversations became a daily ritual. Sarah would arrive early for her shift or stay late, sharing coffee and discussions that ranged from healthcare challenges to their favorite books. She learned about his lonely childhood as a gifted student, always ahead of his peers, while she shared stories about growing up in a large, boisterous family that had initially disapproved of her choice to become a nurse. "They wanted me to be a doctor," she admitted one evening, as the sunset painted the hospital room in warm hues. "But I've never regretted my decision. There's something about nursing, about being there for people at their most vulnerable moments, that just feels right." Marcus watched her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "You have a gift for it. I've been watching how you interact with other patients. You make everyone feel like they're your only concern in that moment." "I notice you've been watching a lot," Sarah teased, trying to lighten the suddenly charged atmosphere. "Well, when you're confined to a hospital bed, you have to find ways to entertain yourself," he responded with a grin that transformed his whole face. As days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone else: her dreams of improving patient care, her frustrations with the healthcare system's limitations, her secret passion for painting that she never had time to pursue. Marcus proved to be an excellent listener, offering insights and encouragement that made her see her own life in a new light. The day Marcus took his first steps post-surgery, Sarah was there, supporting him both physically and emotionally. His hand gripped her arm with the same intensity as that first night in the ER, but this time, instead of desperation, there was trust. "You know," he said, breathing heavily from the exertion, "I'm starting to think that car accident was the best thing that ever happened to me." Sarah raised an eyebrow. Most people wouldn't consider a near-death experience a positive thing. "Most people haven't had you as their nurse." His voice was soft, serious, and Sarah felt the weight of unspoken words in the air between them. The professional part of her knew she should maintain boundaries, should step back from this growing connection. But there was something about Marcus that made her usual rules seem less important. Perhaps it was the way his eyes followed her around the room, or how he remembered every detail she shared about her life, or the way he made her laugh even during the most challenging moments of his recovery. As his discharge date approached, Sarah found herself facing an uncomfortable truth. She had developed feelings for Marcus Reynolds that went far beyond professional concern. The thought of not seeing him every day left an unexpected ache in her chest. On his last night in the hospital, Marcus caught her hand as she was doing her final checks. "Sarah," he said, his voice serious, "I know you're going to say this was all part of your job, but you've given me more than just medical care. You've given me a new perspective on life, on what matters." Sarah felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "You're going to make a full recovery, Mr. Reynolds. That's all that matters." "Marcus," he corrected softly. "And we both know that's not all that matters anymore." As she left his room that night, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of something both thrilling and dangerous. Little did she know that the connection they had formed, built on trust, gratitude, and growing affection, would soon be tested in ways she could never have imagined. Spring melted into summer, and Marcus Reynolds' recovery became one of Metro General's success stories. The nurses still talked about the night Sarah saved him, though she would blush and change the subject whenever it came up. But now, instead of monitoring his vitals in room 204, she found herself meeting him for coffee at the Artisan Cafe across from the hospital. "You should see the looks on the board members' faces," Marcus said one afternoon, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he described his return to Reynolds Innovation Labs. "They expected me to take it easy, maybe work part-time. Instead, I've been there every day with new ideas, new directions." He reached across the table and took Sarah's hand, a gesture that had become natural between them. Near-death experiences have a way of clarifying what's important. Sarah smiled, but couldn't help noticing the dark circles under his eyes. "Just don't push yourself too hard. Recovery isn't a race," says the woman who works 12-hour shifts and still finds time to take evening classes in healthcare administration. He teased, but his expression grew serious. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. The accident made me realize there's a huge gap in emergency medical care, a gap that technology could help fill." Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. Over the past months, she'd watched Marcus throw himself into work with an intensity that both impressed and worried her. Reynolds Innovation Labs had already announced several breakthrough AI projects, making headlines in the tech world. "I'm launching a new division," he continued, "focused entirely on medical technology, and I want you to be part of it." Miss Sarah blinked in surprise. "Marcus, I'm a nurse, not a tech expert." But exactly, his enthusiasm was contagious. "You understand healthcare from the ground up. You know what really works, what doesn't, where the real problems are. With your insights and our technology, we could revolutionize emergency care." But the idea took root in Sarah's mind, growing stronger with each passing day. She began spending her free evenings at Marcus's penthouse office, watching in amazement as he transformed her practical suggestions into technological possibilities. Their personal relationship deepened alongside their professional collaboration, nights of work seamlessly blending into intimate dinners and long conversations. "What if we could create an AI system that could predict patient deterioration before any visible symptoms?" Marcus mused one evening as they stood looking out over the city lights. "Something that could have warned about my pneumothorax before it became critical." Sarah found herself caught up in his vision. The number of lives we could save. She turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes took her breath away. "We could save them together," he said softly, pulling her close. Their first kiss tasted of coffee and possibilities, of shared dreams and unspoken promises. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Sarah continued her work at the hospital, but now her breaks were filled with video calls to Marcus's development team. She found herself traveling to tech conferences on her days off, standing beside Marcus as he presented their ideas to investors. Reynolds Innovation Labs' stock price soared with each new announcement about their medical AI initiatives. "You've transformed him," Marcus's chief technology officer told her at a company gala. "I've never seen him so focused, so driven by purpose rather than just profit." Sarah wanted to believe it was true. She saw how Marcus's face would light up when she shared stories from the ER, how he would spend hours refining their AI algorithms based on her practical input. Their relationship became the talk of both the hospital and the tech world, the nurse and the billionaire, building a future together. Late one night, as they sat surrounded by prototype designs in his home office, Marcus turned to her with an expression she'd never seen before. "Sarah, I need to ask you something important." Her heart skipped a beat, thinking this might be a different kind of proposal, but Marcus pulled out a thick folder instead. "I want you to officially join Reynolds Innovation Labs as the Director of Medical Integration," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Lead our entire healthcare division. Help me build something that will change medicine forever." Sarah stared at the contract, her mind spinning. The salary was more than she'd make in 10 years of nursing. But my patients. "Think of how many more patients you could help through this," Marcus urged. "We're talking about implementing these systems globally. You could save thousands of lives instead of dozens." Looking into his eager face, Sarah felt something shift inside her. This was more than a career change, it was a chance to make a real difference, to transform the very nature of healthcare, and to do it alongside the man she'd grown to love. "Yes," she whispered. Then more firmly, "Yes, I'll do it." Marcus pulled her into a passionate kiss, then pressed his forehead to hers. "We're going to change the world, Sarah Chen." As she signed the contract, Sarah couldn't know that she was also signing away something precious, something she wouldn't fully understand until it was too late. For now, she was caught up in the intoxicating rush of love and ambition, of watching their shared dreams take shape in lines of code and gleaming prototypes. That night, as they celebrated with champagne on his balcony, the city lights seemed to mirror the sparkle in Marcus's eyes. "To us," he toasted, "and to the future of healthcare." Sarah clinked her glass against his, her heart full of hope and possibilities. The young nurse who had once saved a stranger's life in the air could never have imagined where that night would lead or the price she would ultimately pay for following her heart. Sarah's first hint that something was wrong came during a routine investor presentation. She sat in the back of Reynolds Innovation Lab's gleaming conference room, watching Marcus command the stage as he always did. His charisma filled the space, drawing investors into his vision of the future. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, his voice carrying the confidence she'd grown to love, "what if I told you we could reduce hospital staffing costs by 60% while improving patient outcomes?" Sarah's pen paused over her notebook. This wasn't part of their planned presentation. "Our new AI system, NurseCore, isn't just an assistant to medical professionals," Marcus continued, clicking to the next slide. "It's a replacement." The word hit Sarah like a physical blow. On the screen, she watched in horror as footage played from Metro General, her hospital, her colleagues, her daily routines. Everything she'd shared with Marcus, every intimate detail of patient care, had been analyzed and programmed into an AI system designed to make her profession obsolete. Using deep learning algorithms and data collected from multiple hospitals, Marcus was saying, NurseCore can monitor patients, dispense medications, and make care decisions with 99.9% accuracy. Human error is eliminated, staffing shortages become irrelevant. Sarah's hands began to shake. She recognized the scenarios being demonstrated. They were her cases, her decisions, her techniques. Even the way the robotic arms moved mimicked her gentle touch with patients, a touch she'd described to Marcus during their late-night conversations. "We project that within 5 years, NurseCore can replace up to 80% of nursing staff in major hospitals," Marcus announced proudly. "The cost savings alone will revolutionize healthcare economics." Unable to breathe, Sarah slipped out of the conference room. In the hallway, she bumped into Marcus's chief technology officer, who couldn't quite meet her eyes. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He shifted uncomfortably. "The project predates your involvement with the company. Marcus had been developing it since before his accident. Your insights just helped perfect it." The pieces fell into place with devastating clarity. Every question Marcus had asked about her work, every time he'd encouraged her to share her experiences, every suggestion he'd sought for improving patient care, it had all been research. She had been his unwitting source of data, helping him design the very system that would replace her and countless others. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Lisa at Metro General Emergency Staff Meeting called. "Big announcement coming. Need you here." The hospital conference room was packed when she arrived. Dr. Richards stood at the front, his face grave. "As you may have heard, the board has been exploring cost-cutting measures. Reynolds Innovation Labs has offered us an opportunity to be the first hospital to implement their new automated nursing system." The room erupted in chaos. Sarah saw the fear on her colleagues' faces, dedicated professionals who had spent years, decades even, perfecting their craft. Lisa caught her eye across the room, mouthing silently, "Did you know?" The shame and guilt were overwhelming. Her phone kept lighting up with messages from Marcus, but she couldn't bear to read them. Instead, she found herself walking to room 204, now occupied by an elderly patient who smiled at her warmly. "Such a kind face," the woman said. "You remind me of my nurse from yesterday. She held my hand when I was scared about my surgery." Sarah's vision blurred with tears. How could an AI replicate that human connection? How could algorithms understand the importance of a gentle touch, a sympathetic smile, a moment of shared humanity? The sound of familiar footsteps behind her made her stiffen. Sarah Marcus's voice was soft, pleading. "Let me explain." She turned to face him, this man she'd grown to love, this man who had used her so completely. "Explain what?" "How you manipulated me, how you used my passion for patient care to destroy everything I believe in." "This isn't destruction, it's evolution," he argued. "Think of the efficiency, the consistency. No more burnout, no more staffing shortages. No more human touch," Sarah countered. "No more intuition that comes from years of experience. No more holding a frightened patient's hand or recognizing the slight changes in breathing that machines might miss." "The AI can be programmed to simulate all of that," Marcus insisted. "Simulate?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "That's what you did with me, isn't it? Simulated caring about my work, my colleagues, my dreams." "I do care about you," he stepped closer, reaching for her hand. "Everything between us is real." Sarah pulled away. "Was it real when you watched me pour my heart into improving patient care, all while planning to automate my profession out of existence? Was it real when you used my experiences, my insights, my trust to build something that will hurt countless dedicated nurses?" The elderly patient in the bed stirred, momentarily forgotten. "Is everything all right, dear?" she asked Sarah with genuine concern. That simple human interaction, that spontaneous expression of care, broke something inside Sarah. "No," she answered, looking directly at Marcus. "Nothing is all right, but it will be, because I won't let you destroy what makes nursing truly irreplaceable." She walked out of room 204 for the last time, leaving behind both the man she'd loved and the naive trust she'd placed in him. In its place, a new determination took root to fight for the soul of healthcare itself. As she passed the nurses' station, her colleagues were already organizing, sharing information, preparing for battle. They had saved countless lives together. Now it was time to save their profession from being reduced to ones and zeros. Marcus's voice called after her, but Sarah didn't turn back. The same determination that had helped her save his life, that fateful night, now steeled her resolve against him. The greatest betrayal wasn't just personal, it was an assault on everything she held sacred about patient care. The months following Nurse Corps' announcement transformed Sarah from a bedside nurse into the unexpected voice of healthcare's human element. What began as an impassioned speech at a hospital board meeting evolved into a national movement, with Sarah at its heart. "The danger isn't in the technology itself," she told a packed auditorium of healthcare professionals and tech investors. "It's in forgetting what makes human care irreplaceable." Her voice carried the weight of experience, of countless nights spent comforting terrified patients and celebrating small victories. An AI can monitor vital signs, but can it hold the hand of a dying patient? Can it comfort a child who's scared of needles? Can it recognize the slight change in a family member's voice that suggests they need support too? Her campaign gained momentum, drawing support from patients whose lives had been touched by nurses' care. They shared stories of compassion that transcended clinical duties, moments that couldn't be replicated by algorithms and robotics. Meanwhile, Marcus threw himself into defending Nurse Corps, but something had changed. He looked tired during press conferences, his usual confidence wavering. Sarah caught glimpses of him on TV, noting the shadows under his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands that others might miss. Her nursing instincts wanted to reach out, to check on him, but the wound of his betrayal was still too fresh. Then came the night that changed everything. Sarah was working a rare shift in the ER. She'd insisted on maintaining some clinical hours, despite her growing role as an advocate, when the doors burst open. The paramedics rushed in with a familiar figure on the gurney. Marcus Reynolds, 42, severe allergic reaction, they reported. BP dropping, airways compromising. Sarah froze for a split second before professional instincts took over. As she worked to stabilize him, Memories of their first meeting in this same flooded back. But this time was different. Nurse Corps units had been installed for trial runs in the emergency department. The AI system beeped and whirred, suggesting treatment protocols and medication doses. But Sarah noticed something. The machines missed a subtle pattern in Marcus's reactions that reminded her of a case from years ago. Followed the standard protocol she ordered, trusting her intuition. He's showing signs of a complex reaction. We need to adjust the approach. Her human judgment, backed by years of experience, proved correct. Marcus stabilized, but only after several tense hours of careful monitoring and subtle adjustments that went beyond standard algorithms. When he regained consciousness, Marcus found Sarah checking his vitals by hand, not through the machines. "You saved me," he whispered hoarsely. "Again." The AI helped, Sarah replied professionally. But some decisions still required human judgment. Marcus grabbed her hand, his grip weak but urgent. "I was wrong, Sarah, so terribly wrong. Watching the Nurse Corps trials, seeing how patients responded, I kept remembering how you cared for me after my accident. The machines do everything correctly, but something's missing. Something essential." Sarah felt tears threatening but maintained her professional composure. "The human element isn't just an add-on, Marcus. It's fundamental to healing." Over the next few days of his recovery, Marcus watched the interplay between human nurses and AI assistants. He saw how the best outcomes came from collaboration rather than replacement machines handling routine tasks while nurses focused on the complex, intuitive aspects of patient care. One evening, as Sarah finished her rounds, Marcus had his laptop open despite orders to rest. "I've been making calls," he said, "rewriting the entire proposal. Nurse Corps needs to be reimagined not as a replacement, but as a partnership." His fingers flew across the keyboard. AI should handle the administrative burden, the documentation, the routine monitoring. Free up nurses to do what they do best, provide genuine human care. Sarah approached cautiously, her heart struggling between lingering hurt and hope, and the hospital contracts being rewritten, he assured her. "No staff cuts. Instead, we're proposing a hybrid model. Every Nurse Corps unit will be paired with human nurses, enhancing their capabilities rather than replacing them." Tears fell freely now as Sarah read over his shoulder. The new proposal incorporated everything she'd been fighting for: the preservation of human care while embracing technological support. "I need your help," Marcus said softly. "Not just your knowledge this time, but your heart, your understanding of what really matters in patient care. Help me make this right." Sarah really looked at him for the first time since the betrayal. She saw remorse, understanding, and something else: wisdom earned through humility. "It won't be easy," she warned. "Trust has to be rebuilt, not just with me, but with the entire healthcare community." Marcus nodded. "I know, but maybe that's what I needed to learn. Some things can't be automated or replaced. Some connections, professional and personal, need to be nurtured, not engineered." Over the following weeks, they worked together to rebuild both their professional vision and their personal relationship. The new Nurse Corps became a symbol of harmony between human care and technological advancement. Hospitals reported improved patient outcomes, with nurses feeling supported rather than supplanted by the AI assistants. Sarah and Marcus found their way back to each other slowly, their reunion strengthened by a deeper understanding of what they each brought to their shared mission. Their story became a testament to the possibility of redemption and to the enduring power of human connection in an increasingly digital world. Sometimes, Sarah reflected, watching nurses and AI units working seamlessly together in the ER, the best innovations don't replace the old ways, they help us be better at what matters most. Marcus squeezed her hand, understanding at last that true progress meant honoring the irreplaceable human heart of healthcare. 5 years after the Nurse Corps revolution, Metro General's emergency room hummed with a different kind of energy. AI assistants worked alongside nurses in a seamless dance of technology and human care. Where there had once been fear of replacement, there was now a model of collaboration that hospitals worldwide sought to emulate. Sarah Chen Reynolds stood at the podium of the newly inaugurated Chen Reynolds Foundation for Healthcare Innovation, addressing a room filled with future nurses and medical technologists. Her wedding ring caught the light as she gestured to the screens behind her, showing real-time data from hospitals across the country. "The numbers tell an impressive story," she said, her voice carrying the same warmth that had once comforted a terrified Marcus in room 204. Patient satisfaction up 45%. Nurse burnout reduced by 60%. Response times improved by 33%. But the real story isn't in the statistics, it's in the moments between them. Marcus joined her on stage, their past conflicts transformed into a shared vision for the future. Our foundation doesn't just fund technology, he added. It supports programs that teach what can't be programmed: empathy, intuition, the human touch that makes healthcare truly healing. Together, they had created a legacy that stretched far beyond their original dreams. The Chen Reynolds protocol for AI integration became the global standard, ensuring that technological advancement enhanced rather than replaced human care. Their foundation provided scholarships for nursing education and funded research into the delicate balance between digital efficiency and human connection. In the halls of Metro General, a plaque hung outside room 204, telling the story of a nurse who saved a tech entrepreneur's life, only to later save the soul of healthcare itself. Below it, a simple message read, "Technology may power our future, but humanity will always be its heart." Sarah and Marcus's journey from crisis to conflict to collaboration became a testament to the power of understanding, forgiveness, and the courage to fight for what truly matters. Their story reminded the medical community that in the race toward innovation, we must never lose sight of the irreplaceable value of human connection.